Hey guys, this is Crimson Dante Gamer, and today I just want to talk about my system. So no one has a higher score than mine with an i7-700K and a pair of RX 580s. My score is 2,807. That's on par with a GTX 1080. And if you don't believe me, I'll show you the scores that you get with a GTX 1080. Now, with a better processor, I could get an even better score, but yeah. So this is benchmark September 29, 2018, and I also have a much higher score than this. My maximum was 22,212. Same system, nothing different. Of course, I had to overclock my processor 5 gigahertz, and this was during the time of winter, when it was still cold, that I managed to get a overclock of 22,212. Anyways, so having a top tier RX 580 like the Sapphire Nitro or the Asus Strix, you can get a score like this. You can get a 2 RX 580s, the high tier ones on Crossfire, to be about on par with a Vega 64 liquid cooled, maybe even on par with a 1080 Ti. Now I've benchmarked my cards on Shadow of War, and I've gotten around 80 FPS on 1440p on ultra settings. Now there is a video where you can look at here, real quick. I'm gonna go to video where you can look at here to see what kind of score a 1080 Ti does on Shadow of War. Now this is just one example, but I really believe that this is holding to be true. Shadow of War 1440p, 1080 Ti. There you go. Frame rate performance. Oh, oops, that's not the one I wanted to. This is the one I wanted to click. There we go. So the guy in the details said that he has an Asus Strix GTX 1080 Ti, and I believe him. I see no reason for him to lie. And he has a Intel 4th generation 700K overclocked for, that's decent enough. Anyways, so he benchmarks it, and he gets at the end 90 FPS in total for the average of the entire benchmark. I'll let it load. So it's 90 FPS. I get 80 FPS, the same FPS, with 2 RX 580s with maxed out graphics. He says he has an Ultra. I had mine on Ultra, and I got 80 FPS on the benchmark. I get 90 on high settings, by the way, with 2 RX 580s. So it's about 10 FPS performance. Now, if you look at the calculator, of course I had mine overclocked, but I could also overclock it further if I want. That's the whole point of getting a high-end RX 580s, because you can overclock it and it'll be on par with the higher tier graphics cards. Now, it's very non-brainer to say that if you have 2 Sapphire Pulses, which are low tier RX 580s, to get the same score. No, you're probably going to get around Vega 64 level performance because of 2 reasons. One, those cards will not run as cool as an Asus Strix or a Sapphire Nitro, and 2, you probably won't be able to overclock them as high because they're running hot. Like in Crossfire, like I was benchmarking a Sapphire Pulse. I mean, for a single card, they wouldn't be that much of a difference. It would pretty much be the same. But on a Crossfire, that's a different story, man. So on a single card, I benchmarked my Sapphire Pulse. I made a different system not too long ago for my aunt, which is going to be on November 24th for her birthday. I did a single system GPU about another RX 580 about the Sapphire Pulse because it was cheapest and the best for the price for 8 gigabytes of VRAM. Now I tested it and I overclocked it to 1400 megahertz. It was running at 1366 megahertz, I believe, and overclocked it to 1400 megahertz. And automatically it was running around 72, 74 degrees, which is what my GPUs are running at when I have them overclocked. They're running around 1450 megahertz. I could overclock it further if I wish, but that's when it becomes a little bit unstable. It is possible to go 1500 megahertz. I've seen people do it. People on YouTube has done it, like J2 Sense, where he shows a Sapphire Nitro Plus overclocked to 1500 megahertz, and yeah, the performance and everything. So if you have two GPUs and a good CPU like Intel i7 8700K, and two of those GPUs, the Sapphire Nitros, right, overclocked to 1500 megahertz with a good power supply, you're gonna get really nice performance. You're most likely gonna get around 1080 Ti level of performance. And this is, coming from me. Now, this is the score I got today. Now, if I look at other scores, other results I've gotten much higher scores than that. Let's go look at Firestrike. This is the other computer I was talking about with the AMD Ryzen 5 that I built for my aunt because she's a teacher, and of course I threw in the RX 580 because why not? Because I can. Now the benchmark I wanted to show you is this one. This is the absolute most that I've gotten, and this is basically pretty much the same thing. It's just my processor was running at 5 gigahertz, and this was benchmarked. This is my score, 31,000 as a graphics score, and this was benchmarked all the way. Oh, this was benchmarked in May. Alright, May. This is when it was benchmarked, and we got a score of a pretty decent score. I could have gotten this a little bit higher, 1,475 megahertz, but I believe 1450 megahertz was fine for the overclock, and this was the score I got, which is about 1080 Ti level of performance. And I've done the same here, except my processor was overclocked to 4.9 gigahertz. You actually get more performance at 5. And I pretty much get the same score with my graphics cards, 31,000 almost graphics score. Pretty much the same graphics score I got from before. Now, my sister's a little bit old. I've been gaming and all that. It's perfectly normal for the system to go a little bit slower than what it used to be, but for the most part it's pretty much the same performance. I didn't see any difference in benchmarks and anything that I saw earlier, like maybe 1 FPS lower or so. For example, Shadow of War, before I used to get around 81 FPS, and now I get around 80 when overclocked. So yeah, it's not much of a big deal. It could be also the processor that's not overclocked to its limits. 4.9 gigahertz is what I overclocked it. This is basically my system still running at a pretty good pace. Once I overclock this to 5 gigahertz, it gets super hot for my system. And I am using a liquid cooler. I'm not using the best liquid cooler. It's a decent liquid cooler, but yeah, if you want to overclock these to the max, you need to get something like a high tier air cooler or a mid tier liquid cooler. That's what you need. If you have a low tier liquid cooler like I have, you're gonna have trouble overclocking this to 5 gigahertz. Unless it's winter time, then it's gonna be easier. But yeah. So yeah, this is the score I got, and this is the highest score that you can get on my system with a pair of RX 580 Sapphire Nitros and the i7-700K. That's the score I got. Now let's compare this to a 1080 Ti. Alright, this is the score I got here. Let's look at the results again. And there's a few things I want to debunk also. So let's try i7. There's the processor, the GPU, GTX 1080 Ti, which is the best GPU you can get even right now. No point of going for the RTX at all. The 1080 Ti is good for everything. You basically get the same performance for the same price. No reason to buy a RTX GPU. So let's look at the performance. Alright, this is the performance I got, right? Let it load. Oh wait, this is times 5, my bad, forgot. Let's do that again, 21,800. There you go, see? Similar scores, and this is with a 1080 Ti. 1080 Ti. 7700K with a 1080 Ti. 1080 Ti. Of course, these are most likely low tier 1080 Ti. Let's see what kind of 1080 Ti they have, if it's possible to see. So it's core clocked to 2050 megahertz, so they overclocked the shit out of their 1080 Ti. Memory bus, so this is an overclocked 1080 Ti, not even. It's an overclocked 1080 Ti. But they didn't overclock their processor. Oh, and they have a... Ooh, that's even better motherboard than what I have. And they have 2,664 megahertz of memory. Now, if I was in their place, I would have had 3,000 or 3,200 megahertz of memory. Now, this will really boost the computer. It also depends what memory you have, too, if you want to get performance. But look at the graphics score. I pretty much have the same graphics score. I actually have a higher physics score, but the combined score was actually better on his system. Of course, if he overclocks this, it will definitely pass my system for sure. He has an overclocked graphics card. He overclocked 2050 megahertz, but he didn't overclock his processor. So let's look at this. So over here he has, so this is most likely not even a really good 1080 Ti, it's just a decent 1080 Ti like Timmy Joe's blower, fan, cooler 1080 Ti. But anyways, he has his processor overclocked to 5 gigahertz. He uses the same, 3,200, what the hell? Okay, so I think it's a Founders, it's a Founders Edition 1080 Ti. Yeah, it's a Founders Edition 1080 Ti. So why does he have, yo, dude, why don't you just get a slightly worse motherboard? Now you don't even need to buy, you could buy the MSI X370, right? And get a better 1080 Ti. Like a triple fan 1080 Ti. You could overclock that to 2050 megahertz. Why? Why? You could have had more performance than that. I guess people like their Asus motherboards. Well, the good thing about Asus is that if your motherboard breaks, they can give you a refund about it. And I don't think other motherboards really do that. Anyways, my graphics card, I got around the same graphics card as a 1080 Ti. So what does this mean? Well, it means that if you have a Sapphire Nitro, like what I was trying to, oh yeah, the calculator, right? Sorry, I'm going all over the place. So if you calculating 80 is what I got on my RX 580 on the Shadow of War, and 90 is what this guy got on his Asus Strix 1080 Ti. It's really not that much of a difference. Performance around 11% performance difference, and if you get in one game this type of performance, it should usually be correct on the other games. And this is me programming here. It's usually correct with the other games here. I don't think that's too far off based on what the performance I see, based on what I feel. I mean, I even looked at Overwatch, and I was getting around identical performance to a 1080 Ti, and in other games too. Evolve, I was getting the same performance as 1080 Ti. Now the Final Fantasy 15 I can't really compare, unfortunately, because it has no crossfire support, unfortunately, which is the only game I run that doesn't have crossfire support. I have other games, but these are the most games I play. I mostly play StarCraft 2, Overwatch, some Nier Automata, some other games here. Shadow of the Tomb Raider I played, but I finished that game. But yeah, I mean, that's one of the games I actually had trouble playing on this system. Played on a 1050 Ti. On 1080p, I mean, I really didn't mind. I mean, of course it's better to play with higher FPS, but I didn't mind it as long as my game looked really nice. So, you know, as long as I could play on high graphics on 1080p or 1440p, you know, I usually don't mind turning on the resolution a little bit down if I could play on higher graphic settings. Because I was running, let's see, overclocked GTX 1050 Ti with high settings on Rise of Tomb Raider with 45 FPS average, no problem. Even the 50 FPS average. 45 to 50 FPS average I was running on Rise of Tomb Raider on 1050 Ti, overclocked. You know, that's pretty decent, honestly. If anyone says otherwise, I disagree. 1080p card at 1050 Ti could do perfectly well for 1080p gaming. Especially if the games you play is Overwatch and games like that, it'll do fine. I mean, I was getting close to 80 90 FPS playing Overwatch on high settings. It'll do just fine, honestly. If you have a G-Sync monitor and you have it at 72 Hz, it will do fine. Personally, I would also disagree on getting a older version of a NVIDIA graphics card. The lowest you should go for older versions is the 900 series, because two reasons. The older graphics cards will have less support, while the newer ones will have more and more support, so they will last longer over time. But if you have a 780 Ti and you have a really good one, like the high-end one, which is the only ones you should be buying. If you're buying the mid or lower-end 780 Ti's, I would say not even worth the purchase. Because the 780 Ti Matrix, right? I mean, not only are you buying an older graphics card, but you should want to have the best out of it, because it's an older generation, and later on it will be less and less supported over the games. So it's just going to have less and less performance over time. And a 780 Ti Asus Matrix, right? If you overclock it to the maximum, it's on par with a GTX 1063 GB. And the GTX 1063 GB is around roughly 35 to 40% faster than a GTX 1050 Ti. That's what the performance gap is. Now a GTX 1066 GB is about 45 to 50% faster. It's a little bit faster and it has more VRAM, and I think the GTX 1066 GB is just really limited on that VRAM, and it's only good for 1080p. Going higher than that is just killing the graphics card. I mean, if you play a game like Nier Automata on a 3 GB of VRAM of 1440p, I guarantee on high settings it will not run. It will not run. Same thing with Shadow of War. Same thing with Final Fantasy 15. Those games will take a lot of graphic power. So, also, I want to mention that there's one more thing that I have to mention. Now, Crossfire and SLI, all those things, is not for everyone. Those things are only for people that the games that are playing. Most of the games that they're using, that they're playing, right? It uses Crossfire, utilizes Crossfire. Now, for the most part, it is better to go with the single GPU solution. That's the best way to go, because like Final Fantasy 15, which is a newer title, it doesn't support DirectX 12, which means Crossfire won't run, or multi-GPU setup won't run. It doesn't have any Crossfire support on the actual Radeon thing, although it does say it does, but it doesn't. It doesn't run the game at all. And that's terrible. So if you have a single GPU that performs identical to two RX 580s, you should go buy that one. Personally, if you're buying a GPU like a GTX 1080 Ti, try to get the best, like a triple fan version of it, and a GTX 1080 Ti that can overclock pretty damn well. That's what you should be looking for. Same thing with the Vega 64. Now, the higher tier Vega 64, I think they're pretty damn good. I've heard that the Sapphire Nitro Plus Vega 64, which the Sapphire Nitro Plus cards are the best cards you can buy from the AMD series. Now, the Sapphire Nitro Plus Vega 64, I've heard that it's about 7% faster than the standard Vega 64. And it's true, it is. If you look at some videos, you can actually see it. Which means it's probably a little bit faster than a 1080, or probably just on par with it. I'm most likely going to bet it's about 2 to 3% faster than a 1080, and that's one of the cards I think that it's worth it, besides the AC tricks and some other cards. Usually the ones that are triple fan Vega 64s, those are the ones you want, and those are the ones that are going to overclock pretty damn well. But yeah, these are basically the things I want to talk about. And the last thing I want to talk about is here, I messaged, I'm going to put some stuff on Not an Apple Fan underneath the comment section. He said that 1050 Ti was garbage. Now, I disagree. Now, if you look at a standard 780 Ti, right? A standard 780 Ti in gaming. Now, I will show you a video here from a different YouTuber. He benchmarked some games using a 1050 Ti and 780. I completely believe him. This is true. I mean, a 1050 Ti is a 2017 generational card, and this is all the way back 2012, 2013. So I believe this is to be correct performance. Now, I believe that he's running a lower end at 780 Ti. You know, the bad graphics cards, which is why I always recommend try to get the higher end version of these cards of every generation. It will last longer. Now, the performance gap here is about 10 FPS on GTA 5, but there's some other games that you see, like Battlefield 5. You're getting around 5, maybe 2 to 5 FPS difference. It's really not that big of a difference. In some frames, you can actually see the 1050 Ti being on par with the 780 Ti. Oh, sorry about that, guys. I'm a little bit sick. But anyways, this is my point, that the 1050 Ti can be on par with a 780 Ti. It can be. Now, if you have an Asus Matrix or any of those 780 Ti's, if you overclock them, right? If you overclock them, it can rather be on par with a GTX 1063 GB. Both are 3 gigs anyways, so these cards are mainly used for 1080p. They're great budget graphics cards for 1080p, but they're not you know, beginners graphics cards for gaming. Beginners graphics cards are like 1030, RX 550, stuff like that. Those are the beginner, you know, the entry level. Those are the entry level gaming graphics cards. Now the budget graphics cards are, well, this is pretty much a budget graphics card. The 780 Ti, the 1050, the 1050 Ti, the RX 560. Those are all budget level graphics cards, and above that is the mid-range, and then it's the high range and the enthusiast. The enthusiast graphics cards are the RTX 2080 Ti, RTX 2080, and the 1080 Ti. Those are the enthusiasts, and then you have the high end, which is the 1080, 1070 Ti, 1070 Ti, 1070 is also a high-end graphics card. Do not say that it's a mid-range when it's not. It's a low-tier, high-end graphics card. The Vega 64 is a high-end graphics card. The Vega 56 is in between the 1070 and 1070 Ti, and those are the high-end. Now you go to mid-range, is the 1066 GB, the GTX 980 Ti. Well, the 980 Ti actually goes on the high-range graphics cards. Actually, the 980 is a mid-range because of the performance it still provides. Although the VRAM is still bottlenecking it. The RX 580 8GB is also mid-range. I mean the 8GB version, because it actually can play 1440p very well on 8GB of VRAM. And then it's the GTX 1060 6GB and so forth. And then I already told you what the budget graphics cards are. And this is proven in websites, you can check it out. If somebody tells you otherwise, man, it's not true. I mean, you know already what's the entry level, what's the budget level, what's the mid-range, what's the high-end, what's enthusiast. I also going to say, you see the frame rate is really not that different. It's only about at best 10. You saw that? The frame rate a second ago was matching the 780 Ti's. There you go. It was matching it. So it's about 5 FPS, well, maximum 10 FPS difference depending on the game. Now, if you are comparing it with a higher end 780 Ti, of course, if you overclock it, which the 1050 Ti can't really overclock to that level of performance, the 780 Ti will be performing the same as a GTX 1060 3GB, which was considered a long while ago to be a mid-range, but because of the lack of VRAM, I mean, it should have at least 4GB of VRAM to be able to do something in 1440p, you know, to play some decent games. Like, seriously, I mean, 3GB of VRAM is such a bottleneck for 1440p, and mid-range graphics cards should be able to play 1440p really well, and higher end graphics cards should be able to play 4K really well. The 1070 can play 4K decently. The 1070 Ti and 1080 can play 4K well. The Vega 64 can play 4K decently. I mean, it can play 4K well. The Vega 56, it can play 4K decently, just like a 1070 or 1070 Ti. It's mixed between that card. And yeah, those are the high-end, like, and also the 980 Ti, let's not forget, is also a high-end graphics card. And you can find it cheaper than a, I don't know, probably around on par with the, well, maybe a little bit more expensive than the GTX 1066GB, but definitely not more expensive than a 1070 if you find it used. I mean, you can find it used right now. In Craigslist and eBay, you can find those cards for used. So you can see the 1050 Ti is really matching the 780 Ti. Really matching it. And this is an Asus GTX. Well, it's not the Matrix, so it's probably a mid-tier 780 Ti. So that's another debunk from not an Apple fan, by the way, saying that the 1050 Ti was a garbage card. And another debunk I wanted to do, I pretty much wrote everything I thought was incorrect what he said, so I just wanted to make it clear in this video, and that's basically it. So yeah, it's really possible to get the same performance as a GTX 1080 Ti, depending what you put on your system. Like, the RAM makes a factor, the processor makes the factor, the motherboard also makes the factor, the cooling makes a factor. Like, if you have a really good tier graphics card, and if you cool it well, it can overclock well, which means it's gonna go way beyond what it can do initially. So yeah, that's why you spend more money for a graphics card than actually spending, you know, just for any of those graphics cards. For example, if you want to do, you know, I mean, for a single graphics card it wouldn't matter, but if you're running multiple graphics cards, it would matter greatly for the performance gap. Now, sometimes even cooling and overclocking also goes well with the cooling. That can also be a factor too if you're running a single graphics card. For example, if you're running a Vega 64, you know, blower, right? You're running a blower fan Vega 64, two of them, they won't do quite as good as performance-wise compared to a Vega 64 Sapphire Nitro Crossfire. you know, 2 of them in Crossfire. It's going to be a lot better than having 2 Vega 64 blower fan style coolers. You know, that's just an example if you want to do Crossfire or SLI. And same goes with the 1080 Ti's. If you want to do a SLI, again, all the games that you're playing, and if you have a lot of games, you must make sure that you are able to use SLI for those games. Because if you only have games that don't run SLI, then what is the point of buying a 1080 Ti? It's just no point. Like if you have 2 1080 Ti's, Asus Strix, right, which is one of the best 1080 Ti's you can get, or a triple fan MSI Duke or something like that, a triple fan 1080 Ti, that shit will run really good, right? Or a Gigabyte Aorus 1080 Ti. You know, you look only for a triple fan 1080 Ti when you're making an SLI. You're not looking for a double fan. You're not looking for a single fan. You're looking for, well, a single fan 1080 Ti. I don't think it exists because you need some type of cooling. You look for a triple big ass card. That's what you look for, 1080 Ti, in order for being able to have good cooling and good overclocking. That's what I believe, and I pretty much made my points across. If you have any questions, put it down in the comment section below. This is Crimson Dante Gamer. Like if you like the video, dislike if you didn't like the video, and tell me why, because I need to know what I can do to actually make my videos better. Anyways, peace.